Joining us now for some analysis is the publisher and editor-in-chief of the Cook Political Report, Amy Walter, and the one and only John Dickerson, who our audience knows very well. Good morning to you both. Good to have you here in person.
So exciting. Love this.
So, you know, I love to have the what does it all mean conversation. And you heard Cedric Richmond, you heard Senator Kaine, their version of events. Amy, are Democrats like just totally overreacting here, or is there a real reason to be panicked?
There's definitely a reason to be panicked. And some of it is historical. I think it was Mark Twain who said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And this pattern we saw in Virginia and New Jersey feels very familiar because we've lived through it. We saw it in 2006. We saw it in 2010. We saw it in 2018. The party in power, especially the party in power that has both bodies of Congress, goes into a midterm election or an off year election like we saw in Virginia and New Jersey. The president's unpopular. The other side is fired up. And the party in power is not quite as energized and engaged. And you put those three things together and you get what we had in 06, 10, and 18, which is a blowout election for the other party, the party that's not in the White House.
And another historical thing we see is after a loss like this, the losing party engages in this massive effort of diagnosis. To solve a problem, you have to diagnose it, then you have to fix it. But everybody's giving a different diagnosis, and there's a huge fight over the diagnosis. They can't even get to the executing the solution because they're still arguing over the diagnosis. And that's the fix that Democrats are in right now.
Well, and Senator Kaine said, don't be the dithering and delaying party, be the doer party. Is the local really about the national?
Well, yes and no. As Amy pointed out, that ugly national picture that is hurting Democrats, as you would expect it to because of history, that ugly national picture is made even uglier when it looks like nothing's happening in Washington. What you heard from Senator Kaine, or what I heard implicit in everything he was saying was, pass this bill so we can talk about something on the campaign trail, shift the topic off of other things and talk about what we're doing. So his message was, boy, this week really set us, we got to get going on this legislation. It may not work, but you got to have something. And a piece of legislation that's passed is better than having nothing.
Right. Amy, the exit polls, as we went through with Senator Kaine, showed economy, education, taxes. The Republican candidate, soon-to-be governor, led on all of those things, on substance. So did Glenn Youngkin kind of form the platform for the GOP to take back control in 2022 with these midterm races? Well,
he certainly showed the roadmap for how a Republican in a blue state. I mean, let's not forget Virginia. It's not just that Joe Biden carried the state by 10. Obama carried this state in 08 and 12. So this is a blue state. He did that by being able to get above Donald Trump. Donald Trump was not a part of this campaign. He was able to keep him at arm's length. He was able to do that, though, in part because, one, it's not a federal race, so it's a little bit easier when it's a local race. But also, the way that he was chosen as the nominee was through a convention process, not a primary. So we didn't get a long, drawn-out primary like we have in so many of these states coming into 2022, where the president is going to insert himself or has already inserted himself. But what Youngkin was able to do was the wind is at his back, and he was able then to focus on the things that he knew would win back those swing voters, right? Education, economy, taxes. Those are classic, not just for the suburbs in and around Washington, but for the rest of the state as well.
And just to pick up on what Amy's saying, the reason primary is important is the purchase price to do well in a primary is wrapping your arms around Donald Trump. And since Youngkin didn't have to do that, he created some of that distance. He also had a second issue that was firing up the Trump base. One of the reasons you have to embrace President Trump is because he's got all those voters. And the key question for any Republican is, will the Trump voter turn out for you if you're not Donald Trump? He didn't have to worry about that because he had critical race theory and other issues surrounding education that would turn out that Trump base. So he had the benefit of the Trump base. And then, as Amy said, those Republicans were desperate to come home. They left because of Donald Trump. Well, if Youngkin doesn't look like Trump, they're happy to come home for a candidate who's also talking about lots of other very traditional Republican issues.
But on that point, education is how it's referred to, right? And that has been an issue Republicans have come back to, just to reopening classrooms. Now it's about what's taught in those classrooms. Youngkin really focused in on that. Does critical race theory and everything it's come to symbolize become one of those cultural wedge issues? Is it the new defund the police, essentially?
They're related. There is nothing more sensitive in American life than race, and no worse place to talk about sensitive issues than in a campaign, because it's about attack and fuzzying up issues. If you think of after George Floyd was murdered, America had a conversation and an opening up of perspective about how to deal with race. It was in corporations, it was in politics, it was in religion, and in the schoolroom, there was a feeling that you had to teach that racism didn't just come with a white hood. Enter now the theory of critical race theory, which is a legal fight over here, but it's brought in the political context to fuzzy everything up. So you have people who both don't like the idea, who are just straight up racist, and those who don't like to be called a racist because they're questioning the idea of defund the police. Condoleezza Rice said, you know, black students should not be empowered by making white students feel less empowered. What somebody would respond is, yes, but we can have a conversation about the contemporary ramifications of historical racism. We should be able to, but you can't in a political fight.
Yeah, nuance is not great in campaigns.
Nuance doesn't happen in campaigns.
But
so the question for Democrats.
This isn't just in the campaigns. We're seeing this in school board protests. This is really being used to galvanize.
Right. And what happened, the challenge for Democrats is that Democrats have to decide this is an important issue to us, but if we fight on it, we're going to be fighting on Republican turf. And that's bad turf because it comes at the expense of conversations we can have about other things that we want to pass. If they don't talk about critical race theory, though, they're giving up an issue they care a great deal about.
Right. And they're going to say, you know, especially for younger voters of color who are marching in the streets in 2020, they're saying, well, that's it, Democrats? That's all you're going to give to us is we came out, we voted for you, and now you're backing off saying, well, we have to be very careful about how we talk about these issues. We can't lose our suburban voters. But I don't know if this issue would have gotten the traction it would have gotten without everything else that was going on, which is a national political environment bad for Democrats and students coming back into a classroom that looks and feels different. Anybody who has a child who tried to survive the pandemic knows that their kids are struggling, that teachers are struggling. So when you hear these school board meetings, a lot of it isn't just about, it's not about that. It's, oh my gosh, my child who has special needs was totally left out, or my kid has fallen through the cracks, or why weren't teachers there in person? We needed to have them there. Why did they cut out sports and AP classes? It's deeper than just that, but that motivated the base for sure.
It's anger, it's anxiety, it's everything that's going on. Thank you for your analysis.
You're welcome.
And we will be right back.